Australia's one of their biggest banks is going all in on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The Commonwealth Bank of Australia is the first mainstream Australian bank to offer crypto services to customers. They're going to start a pilot this year in partnership with Gemini to allow people to start to actually interface with these assets. According to Finder.com, Australia has the third highest rate of crypto ownership. They're at 17.8%. Australians don't play around. Australia loves Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now, Commonwealth Bank of Australia is massive. It is founded in 1911. It's more than 100 years old. It serves almost 16 million customers. It employs almost 50,000 people. And there are more than 800,000 shareholders with the business. The partnership that they've signed is with Gemini. Gemini is going to help offer a crypto exchange and custody services. They've also partnered with Chainalysis to help its compliance team monitor and mitigate the threat of cyber crimes. They're going to do more than just Bitcoin. They have 10 other digital assets they're going to offer as well. And so why exactly are they doing this? Well, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, they said that they believe that much of this decision is being driven by the clients. The clients are demanding that they get access to these assets. On top of that, other local crypto services are being offered by Square, PayPal, and Revolut, which means that they have to compete with those competitors. And so you get two factions or two groups that are pulling Commonwealth Bank of Australia into cryptocurrency. You have your competitors going out and offering this stuff. And so if you want to compete, you have to offer it as well. You also have your clients demanding that they get access. And so we've got these two quotes here. The first coming from the CEO of BTC Markets saying, "Nothing that I know, particularly from a bank of this size, enables retail clients to directly buy crypto through their platform, to the best of my knowledge. So it's really exciting," from Caroline Bowler. And then we have Andrew Bragg, who's a senator for New South Wales, who says, "I am pleased the tide is turning as digital assets are mainstreamed. For too long, banks have cast aside cryptocurrency as an illegitimate fringe pursuit." Pretty cool. And so when we start to look at this, more and more banks are going to have to get in the game. We see banks here in the United States starting to talk about it, starting to try to figure out what their strategy is. But to see one of the largest banks in the country that is the third most popular for cryptocurrency say, "I can no longer sit on the sidelines, I have to participate." This is the game theory playing out. It is inevitable. Every single financial institution will have to interface with these assets. They will have to support them. They will have to build exchanges and custody and all sorts of different services to allow a new generation of investors who say, "I do not want the analog assets. I do not want the electronic QSIP assets. I want the digital assets. I want Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies." And so naturally, what we are going to watch over the next decade or so is the mainstream adoption. We will go from about 10% penetration in the world for people to own Bitcoin all the way up to 85, 90%. And it'll happen very quickly because what will occur is large organizations like this will start to onboard all of their existing users. This bank, which is over 100 years old, has more than 15 million customers. As soon as you start to offer these services, what they're going to find is that a small percentage of them start to adopt the products, then a bigger percentage and a bigger percentage and a bigger percentage. And after 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, what you're going to find is that those assets are going to be in the hands of all of these customers. And so if you are looking at the industry today, when I first started looking at this stuff in 2016, I literally thought I'd missed it because I had watched from 2009 at the creation of Bitcoin all the way to 2016. I didn't participate. I didn't even pay attention to it. I thought I missed it. But now if you look and there's people showing up in 2021, they think they've missed it, right? They say 2009 all the way to 2021, more than a decade. But if you look at the actual structure of the market and you look at who's coming and you look at how large these organizations are, they are massive and they are bringing their customers and their assets and they are going to have to blend in. And ultimately what we're going to watch is we're not going to talk about crypto companies. We're not going to talk about crypto assets. It's just going to be companies and assets. And those companies and those assets, it's just going to be normal. Similar to internet companies. We don't talk about internet companies. We talk about companies. Of course they use the internet. Same thing with these technologies as well. John, what did you think when you saw the Australia news?
CBA, massive bank. It serves almost 16 million customers. They have, I believe, a 24% in 2019. They had about a 24% share of the home lending market, and then another 14% of the business lending market. You can see it there, and 27% of the household deposits. It's a massive bank with a lot of money. This move will help retain, I think, the younger customers who want access to these assets, and it's only a good move for the industry and giving people access.
They ain't gonna be the last one, that's for sure. I think when it comes to crypto specifically, whether it's Bitcoin or any of the other 10 digital assets that they're offering, people want services around them at their traditional banks, right? And I think maybe not the hardcore people that believe that you don't need a bank after this. Sure, I get it. But ultimately, if this is going to go super mainstream and it's going to become the global reserve currency of the world and get all this adoption and all this stuff, these services are necessary. And I think banks like this stepping up with 16 million customers is a step in the right direction. And it's going to be interesting to see over the next 12, 24, 36 months who follows suit on it.
The part to me, which I think everyone overlooks, is that it's not just about the numbers of customers coming in either. It's also that there are major banks now starting to give the blessing, right? The Father, the Son, Holy Spirit, good, you're ready to rock and roll. It's kind of like the ETF approval in the United States. The ETF approval in the United States, sure, there's some capital that flowed, but it's not like $50 billion flowed into those funds. It's just the fact that the SEC signed off on it. And they finally said, okay, this has now reached a point where we are comfortable with it in one form or fashion. Same thing with these large banks, is there's going to be some portion of the population in Australia who's sitting out because they're saying, hey, Commonwealth Bank of Australia is not in yet. But as soon as they finally say, okay, we support this, they're like, well, if it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for me. I trust their brand. I trust them. Whether you agree with that, they should do that or not, that's where ultimately you get the difference or kind of the real impact, in my opinion.
Well, these banks also have a lot of different services and resources already set up, right? And it brings that name and that established institutional name into the space. And I think people trust these banks, right? A lot of people, some people don't, but a lot of people do. And they're willing to have them custody their own Bitcoin or their other cryptocurrencies like Ether, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, all that stuff. And I think people are going to use these banks, and these banks are going to have to shift in the future.
What did you think, Joe?
No, I agree. I think it's obviously a massive bank, especially in Australia. So I think anytime you can get someone of that stature and that kind of customer base to come on and start offering these assets and realize that there's demand for it. And that's really what it is, right? It's all driven by customer demand. So if everyone starts screaming from the rooftops to their institutions, hey, we need these services. We want you to custody our Bitcoin. We want you to do lending. We want you to do all this stuff. Then they're going to go find a way to do it, right? So maybe it's part of they wanted to be the first ones to do it. Maybe it's that they wanted to appease their customers. There's a bunch of different ways that it could have gone. But I think ultimately this is just the beginning. But these are always the exciting steps, right? Because the first people always lead to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, especially the bigger banks that are doing it. And I think what we'll see is over those next, the next 2-3 years that I mentioned before, we're going to see a lot more people do this and a lot more banks follow suit.
That's exactly correct. That's what CBA said. They said it was a growing customer demand for their products, and the fact that other people offer these products, like other fintech companies and not traditional banks, right? So Square, PayPal, Revolut, all these other companies that offer some type of crypto service or crypto custody, they need to compete.
Yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the means for a massive customer acquisition strategy also, right? Because if you become that bank, they're big, obviously, where they are currently, and they're the big player there. But when you start thinking about a way to, here in the US, to acquire customers away from another bank, there's people that would switch banks happily if you went over and you said, hey, we're going to allow you to custody Bitcoin. We're going to allow you to lend off of it. We're going to do all these services around your digital assets. I think that the first banks that end up doing it, it's probably not going to be the biggest banks that you might think of, right? But the medium to the smaller tier guys are going to do it first because they realize that the first innovator and the first mover in that category is going to get a massive tailwind from the industry.